It sits with you in the quiet hours. It does not ask for permission. It does not ring the bell or announce its arrival with a polite cough at the door. It simply slips in, unseen, and pulls a chair to the foot of your bed. It watches you sleep. It listens to your breath. And when your mind begins to drift toward a place of rest, it leans in and whispers your secret name. This is the problem that knows your address. The one that has filed a permanent residence in the chambers of your chest. You have tried to evict it. You have packed its belongings in boxes of denial. You have tried to lose it in the fog of a busy day. You have tried to drown it in noise and numb it with motion. But it is not a guest. It is a squatter. And it knows the locks better than you do. It is the question that loops. The memory that edits itself. The fear that rehearses its own monologue in the theater of your skull, night after night, until the curtains of your sanity begin to fray. You wonder if you are the only one who carries this weight, this peculiar stone in the pocket of your soul. But look around. Everyone here has a stone. Everyone here has a story that plays on repeat. Everyone here is holding onto a problem that has grown claws and is now holding onto them. Some of you are wrestling with a failure that has become your new identity. Some of you are tethered to a wound that time refuses to heal. Some of you are in a conversation with a ghost, replaying words you should have said, bracing for an apology that will never come. You are tired of the fight. You are tired of waking up to the same dread. You feel you are fighting a war you didn't start, against an enemy you cannot see, in a country that is your own mind. But what if the problem is not the enemy? What if the problem is the terrain? And what if the key to your survival is not finding the exit, but learning the rhythm of this new ground? You have been pulling against the chain, wearing your wrists raw. You have been trying to pray the problem away, think it away, or love it away. But today, the call is different. The call is not for escape. The call is for a change of pulse. There is a rhythm that beats beneath the chaos. There is a vibration that hums deeper than the noise of your anxiety. The problem will not let you go. That is the truth. It is a vice grip, a snare, a weight. But you are not being asked to stop its existence. You are being asked to stop its authority. You are being asked to shift the axis of your soul, to adjust the lens of your sight. When the problem is all you see, it becomes a wall. But when you learn to look through it, it becomes a window. When you let it define your beat, you march to the drum of despair. But when you find a new rhythm, a pulse that exists in the very presence of the struggle, you begin to march toward a different horizon. The problem stays, but the power shifts. Look at the night sky. It is filled with shadows, vast oceans of darkness. And yet, the darkness is not a thing. It is the absence of light. The problem is loud, but it is only the absence of a louder truth. You have been listening to the echo. It is time to turn toward the voice that echoes back. The dawn is not coming to steal the night away. The dawn is coming to teach you how to see in the dark. The problem will not let you go. But you are going to learn how to hold it, like a stone in a sling, and change the trajectory of your life. This is not the end of the story. This is the moment you decide that the pulse of the problem will no longer be your heartbeat. The problem that will not let you go is not a distant catastrophe or a fleeting misfortune that passes like a storm cloud. It is not the sort of trouble you read about in the news, feel a pang of sympathy for, and then forget over morning coffee. No, this is the uninvited guest that knows your name, your habits, your vulnerabilities, and the precise hour when your defenses are weakest. It arrives without knocking, without so much as a creak of the floorboard, because it has always been there, waiting in the periphery, watching for the moment your attention drifts and your guard lowers. It pulls a chair to the foot of your bed, not with malice, but with the unnerving intimacy of a companion who has studied you for years, who knows the rhythm of your breathing, the telltale signs of your exhaustion, and the hidden chambers of your heart that you have shown no one else. This is the problem that does not announce itself with dramatic fanfare. It slips in quietly, softly, almost gently, and that is precisely what makes it so terrifying. You cannot prepare for it because it arrives disguised as a familiar thought, a recurring worry, a shadow that you have grown so accustomed to that you have stopped calling it by its name. It sits beside you in the silence of the night when the world has gone to sleep and the noise of the day has faded into a distant hum, and it waits for the moment when your mind begins to drift toward peace, toward that fragile state of rest you have been craving. And just as you feel yourself letting go, just as the tension in your shoulders begins to loosen and your eyelids grow heavy, It leans in close and whispers your secret name, the one you have tried to bury, the one that carries all the weight of your failures, your regrets, and your deepest fears. It does not shout or scream or threaten. It simply reminds you of who you are, or rather, who you have become in the wake of all that has happened, and suddenly the peace shatters like glass and you are awake again, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks, wondering if you will ever truly rest again. This problem does not need to be loud because it has perfected the art of persistence, the slow erosion of hope, the drip of anxiety that wears down even the strongest will over time. It knows that it does not have to win in a single battle, it only has to outlast you, to be there when you wake, to be there when you eat, to be there when you try to laugh and feel the hollow echo of your own voice. You have tried to evict it, of course you have. You have packed its belongings in boxes of denial and distraction. You have tried to lose it in the chaos of a busy schedule. You have tried to drown it in the noise of conversations, music, and endless scrolling. You have tried to numb it with motion and exhaustion, hoping that if you ran fast enough or worked hard enough or slept long enough, it would simply give up and leave. But it is not a guest, it is a squatter, and it knows the locks of your mind better than you do. It knows every secret passage, every hidden corridor, every trapdoor you thought you had sealed shut, and it has made itself at home in the very architecture of your soul. You cannot simply ask it to leave because it has become part of the structure, part of the foundation, part of the blueprint of who you are, and that is the cruel irony. The problem that will not let you go is not an external enemy you can defeat with strategy or force. It is the voice that has learned to speak in your own accent, the shadow that moves when you move, the weight that has become so familiar that you are not sure who you would be without it. It is the companion you never asked for, the roommate you cannot evict, the presence that fills the empty spaces of your life with a low, humming dread that you have almost begun to mistake for normalcy, and that is the most haunting truth of all. The problem that will not let you go does not simply sit beside you in silence. It speaks, it sings, it chants, and its voice is the most familiar sound you have ever known. It creates an echo chamber within the hollow spaces of your mind, a room with no windows and no doors, where the only sound is the endless replay of your own fears, your own failures, your own fractured memories bouncing off the walls and returning to you distorted and amplified. This is the chamber of what if, the prison of could have been, the relentless loop that begins with a single thought and spirals outward until it has consumed every corner of your consciousness. You know the rhythm of this loop intimately because you have been dancing to it for years, the slow, hypnotic beat of regret that starts with a question and ends with a verdict, the what if that becomes a why, and the why that becomes a condemnation that you recite to yourself like a prayer you never wanted to learn. What if you had spoken differently that day? What if you had made a different choice? What if you had seen the signs? What if you had been braver, stronger, wiser? What if you had loved harder or let go sooner? What if you had said yes instead of no? What if you had run instead of stayed? What if you had stayed instead of run? The questions multiply like cells dividing in the dark, each one spawning a dozen more until the original thought is lost beneath the weight of its own offspring. And the worst part, the most agonizing part, is that these questions have no answers. They are not riddles meant to be solved. They are traps meant to be circled, labyrinths designed to keep you moving without ever reaching an exit, because the moment you think you have found a resolution, the loop resets and you are back at the beginning, asking the same question with the same desperate hope that this time the answer will be different. The echo chamber thrives in the silence of the night, when the distractions of the day have fallen away and you are left alone with the raw, unvarnished truth of your own mind, and it is in these hours that the loop plays its loudest, clearest, most devastating refrain. You try to push it away, you try to think of something else, you try to count sheep or recite poetry or remember the lyrics to a song, but the loop is patient and it knows that you are tired, it knows that your defenses are down, and it slides back in with the ease of water finding its level, filling every empty space with its familiar, crushing melody. It is not just the past that the loop recycles, it is the future as well, the what if that stretches forward like a dark tunnel, the fear of what might happen, the anticipation of failure, the rehearsal of conversations that have not yet occurred, the preparation for disasters that may never arrive, and in this way the problem does not just haunt your history, it colonizes your future, turning every possibility into a threat, every hope into a source of anxiety. You begin to mistake this loop for reality. You begin to believe that the voice in your head is simply telling the truth, that the endless replay of your worst moments is just an honest assessment of who you are and what you deserve, and you stop fighting it because fighting it feels futile, because every time you try to break the loop it only seems to tighten its grip, pulling you deeper into its spiral until you cannot remember a time when your mind was quiet, when your thoughts were your own. When you could sit in silence without the echo chamber filling the void with its relentless accusations. The problem that will not let you go has built this chamber brick by brick, using the mortar of your own insecurities, the stones of your own mistakes, the cement of your own shame, and it has convinced you that you are the architect, that you built this prison with your own hands, that You deserve to live within its walls, and that there is no escape because the door was the problem that will not let you go does not merely whisper in your ear or linger at the edge of your vision. It reaches out with invisible hands and wraps itself around your limbs, your lungs, your very will to move forward. This is the paralysis that descends not with a dramatic crash but with a slow, creeping numbness that begins in the extremities of your hope and works its way inward until you are frozen in place, a statue carved from doubt and exhaustion. You wake each morning with the intention to rise, to shake off the weight, to take one step, just one small step towards something better, but the moment your feet touch the floor, the pressure descends again, heavy and suffocating, pressing down on your shoulders like the weight of 1,000 forgotten dreams. You tell yourself that today will be different, that today you will break the cycle, that today you will finally do the thing you have been avoiding. But the problem is not a passive observer, it is an active force that tightens its grip the moment you show any sign of resistance. It does not want to destroy you quickly, it wants to immobilize you slowly, to drain every drop of momentum from your bones until even the thought of movement feels like an act of rebellion too costly to attempt. You find yourself standing at the edge of a decision, any decision, whether it is as small as what to eat for breakfast or as large as whether to change the entire course of your life, and your mind goes blank, your heart races, your palms grow slick with sweat, and you retreat back into the familiar cage of inaction because the cage, at least, is known to you. The future, which once stretched before you like an open road full of possibility, now appears as a wall, smooth and featureless, with no handholds, no doors, no windows, and no sign of where you might begin to climb. Every step forward feels like a step into quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink, until you learn to stop struggling altogether, to accept the slow descent as your new reality, to convince yourself that this is simply how life is meant to feel. You watch others move around you with an ease that seems almost obscene. They make plans, they take risks, they stumble and rise again, while you remain rooted to the spot, a spectator in your own existence, cheering from the sidelines while your own legs refuse to carry you into the game. The problem knows exactly where to apply pressure. It knows that you are most vulnerable in the moments when you pause to consider your options, so it floods your mind with images of failure, of ridicule, of the 1,000 ways your efforts could go wrong, until the risk of trying far outweighs the comfort of staying still. You tell yourself that you are being wise, that you are being cautious, that you are simply waiting for the right moment, but deep down you know the truth. You are not waiting, you are hiding, and the problem has become the walls of your hiding place, closing in inch by inch, year by year, until the space you occupy is no larger than your own skin. This paralysis extends beyond the physical. It seeps into your relationships, your work, your creativity, your very sense of self, because when you cannot move forward, you cannot grow, and when you cannot grow, you begin to shrink, to diminish, to disappear into the background of a life that was meant to be lived in full color. You carry the weight of undone things, of unwritten letters, of unsaid words, of steps not taken and doors not opened, and each of these carries its own gravity, pulling you further down into the mire of your own stagnation. The problem has convinced you that movement is dangerous, that action invites failure, that it is safer to remain exactly where you are, even if where you are is a prison, because a prison at least has walls you know, floors you have memorized, routines that require no courage to maintain. You have become so accustomed to the grip of this paralysis that you have stopped feeling it, like a frog slowly boiled in water that does not notice the rising temperature until it is too late to jump. You have normalized your own immobility, explained it away with reasons that sound logical but are merely the rationalizations of a spirit that has given up the fight. The tragedy is not that you cannot move, the tragedy is that you have stopped believing that movement is possible, that you have surrendered to the lie that this is who you are now, a person defined by what they cannot do rather than what they might yet become. The problem that will not let you go does not have to be your enemy, and this is the revelation that changes everything. The moment when you stop seeing it as a monster to be slain and begin to recognize it as a landscape to be traversed. The solution is not found in the desperate, frantic search for an exit, for a door that will lead you out of the darkness and into the light where the problem no longer exists, because that door does not exist, not in the way you imagine, not as a clean break or a sudden rescue that sweeps you away from all that has troubled you. You have been running, you have been fighting, you have been exhausting yourself in the pursuit of escape, believing that freedom means the complete absence of the problem, that healing means the total erasure of the wound, that peace means the silence of every accusing voice. But what if freedom is not the absence of the weight but the discovery of a new way to carry it? What if the problem is not the obstacle to your peace but the very ground upon which your peace must be built, the raw material of your transformation, the clay that must be shaped rather than discarded? You have been pulling against the chain that binds you, wearing your wrists raw with the effort, but what if the chain is not the enemy? What if the chain is simply the connection to something you have not yet understood? And what if the key is not to break the chain but to change the rhythm of your pulling, to find a pulse that moves with the chain rather than against it? There is a new rhythm that beats beneath the chaos, a vibration that hums deeper than the noise of your anxiety, a pulse that has been there all along, unnoticed because you were too busy fighting to feel it, unheard because you were too busy screaming to listen. This rhythm does not deny the problem, does not pretend it is not there, does not offer you a false comfort or a shallow escape, but it offers you something far more valuable. It offers you a way to breathe within the presence of the problem, to find your footing on the uneven ground, to discover that you can stand even when the earth beneath you is shaking. You have been trying to pray the problem away, think it away, love it away, work it away, but the problem is not something that can be willed out of existence, because it has become part of your story, part of your texture, part of the fabric of who you are, and to remove it entirely would be to remove a thread that holds the whole tapestry together. The call is not for escape, the call is for a change of pulse, a shift in the very rhythm of your being, a movement from the frantic, desperate beat of fear to the steady, grounding pulse of presence, of acceptance, of a strength that does not come from defeating the problem but from learning to exist alongside it without being destroyed by it. You have been fighting a war that cannot be won by fighting, because the enemy is not external, the enemy is not the problem itself, the enemy is the belief that the problem has the power to define you, to limit you, to determine the course of your life, and when you shift your pulse, when you change the rhythm of your response, you take away that power without ever having to slay the dragon. The problem remains, it does not vanish, it does not pack its bags and leave, but something shifts in the atmosphere around it, something changes in the way you relate to it, something transforms in the very chemistry of your soul, and you find that you can walk, you can breathe, you can even laugh, not because the problem has gone away, but because you have found a new center of gravity that does not depend on the problem being absent. This is the rhythm of the survivor, the pulse of the one who has learned to dance in the rain rather than wait for the storm to pass, the beat of the heart that has discovered that it can keep beating even when everything around it is telling it to stop. You are not being asked to pretend that the problem does not hurt, you are not being asked to ignore its presence or minimize its impact. You are being asked to find a deeper pulse, a more ancient rhythm, a heartbeat that predates the problem and will outlast it, a pulse that connects you to something larger than your own suffering, something that has been beating since before you were born and will continue to beat long after this problem has become a distant memory. The problem will not let you go, that is the truth, but you are not being asked to let it go either. You are being asked to hold it differently, to carry it with a different posture, to move with it rather than against it. And in that new movement, that new rhythm, that new pulse, you will discover a freedom that does not require the absence of the problem, but only the presence of a deeper, more resilient you. The problem that will not let you go has held you captive for so long because you have been looking at it, only at it, staring directly into its eyes as if you could somehow stare it down, as if your unwavering gaze could make it blink first and retreat back into the shadows from which it came. But the problem does not blink, it does not retreat, it does not flinch under the weight of your attention, because attention is precisely what it feeds on. Attention is the fuel that keeps its fire burning. Attention is the soil in which its roots grow deeper and stronger with each passing day. You have been giving the problem all of your sight, all of your focus, all of your mental and emotional energy, and in doing so you have made it into a wall, a massive, impenetrable wall that blocks your view of everything else, that fills your entire field of vision until you cannot see the sky, cannot see the horizon, cannot see the path that winds around the wall and continues on to places you have not yet imagined. But what if you shifted your focus? What if you adjusted the lens of your soul? What if you learned to look through the problem rather than at it, to see beyond it, to glimpse the landscape that exists on the other side of this obstacle that has consumed your attention for so long? The problem becomes a wall only when it is all you see, when you press your face against its surface and examine every crack, every imperfection, every rough edge, memorizing its texture until you know it better than you know your own reflection. But when you take a step back, when you lift your gaze, when you begin to look through the problem as if it were a window rather than a barrier, something miraculous happens. You begin to see the light that filters through it, the shape of things beyond it, the possibility that exists not despite the problem but because of the perspective it offers you. The dawn is not coming to steal the night away. The dawn is not coming to eliminate the darkness or pretend that the shadows do not exist. The dawn is coming to teach you how to see in the dark, to show you that even in the deepest, most oppressive blackness, there is a quality of light that can be perceived by eyes that have learned to adjust, by vision that has been trained to seek out the faintest glimmer of hope. You have been waiting for the problem to disappear, waiting for the sun to rise and burn away all the shadows, waiting for a rescue that never seems to arrive, but the rescue is not the disappearance of the problem. The rescue is the discovery of a new way of seeing, a new way of perceiving, a new way of orienting yourself to the reality of your situation. The light does not eliminate the problem, it illuminates it, it reveals its contours and dimensions, it shows you where the problem ends and where your own strength begins. It helps you see the shape of the path that winds around it, over it, or even through it, a path you could never have seen when you were staring directly into the darkness. This is the shift that changes everything, the pivot of the soul that takes you from victim to explorer, from prisoner to pioneer, from someone who is trapped by their circumstances to someone who is navigating their circumstances with a new compass, a new map, a new sense of direction. The problem that will not let you go is not the end of your story, it is not the final chapter, it is not the closing sentence of a life that was meant to be written in larger, bolder letters, it is merely a paragraph, a page, a chapter that you are learning to read with new eyes. When you learn to look through the problem, you begin to see the opportunities it has hidden, the lessons it has carried, the strength it has demanded from you, the resilience it has forged in the furnace of your struggle, and you realize that the problem has not been your enemy, it has been your teacher, harsh and demanding, but a teacher nonetheless. The dawn is not a promise that the night will end, the dawn is a promise that you will learn to see in the night, that you will develop eyes that can perceive beauty in the shadows, that you will discover a light within yourself that no darkness can extinguish, a light that does not depend on the absence of the problem but exists in the very presence of it. You are not being asked to pretend that the problem does not hurt, you are not being asked to minimize its impact or ignore its presence, you are being asked to change your focus, to shift your attention, to look through the problem and see the world that awaits you on the other side, a world that has been there all along, waiting for you to stop staring at the wall and start seeing through it.